Yellow version. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. The Girl Who Went to the Land of Oz. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Dorothy. She lived with her aunt and uncle and her dog, Toto, on a small farm in Kansas. Her house was so far from the village, so she had no friends ever. Her aunt and uncle were always busy. Dorothy had nobody to play with, except for her dog, Toto. Her dog, Toto, was her only friend. Making friends was her always dream. One day, a big storm was coming to the house. It was a tornado. Her aunt and uncle fled to a basement shelter to escape the house. Only Dorothy and Toto were left in the house. Soon the strong wind picked up Dorothy's house. Outside of the house, the tornado was carrying the house to a magical land called Oz. The magical land, Oz. Dorothy's house was carried by a tornado. It arrived in the magical land of Oz. Accidentally, the house landed on top of the Wicked Witch of the East. She was killed under Dorothy's house. But Dorothy had no idea what happened. She didn't even know where she was. A lot of people gathered in front of Dorothy's house. They were the Munchkins living in the east part of Oz. They were small and kind people. They let Dorothy know that she arrived in the land of Oz and that her house had killed the Wicked Witch of the East. They were happy to be free from the evil witch's rule. They thanked Dorothy and celebrated her arrival. Even though all the people thanked Dorothy, all she wanted to do was to return to her home in Kansas. Dorothy wearing the magical shoes. Then, the Witch of the North arrived. She was a good witch. So, she was called the Good Witch of the North. She also appreciated Dorothy's killing of the evil witch. The Good Witch asked Dorothy to wear the evil witch's shoes because they were magical shoes. But even the Good Witch didn't know how to operate them. After putting on the shoes, Dorothy asked the Good Witch to help her go back home to Kansas. She recommended that Dorothy should meet the wonderful Wizard of Oz to go back to her home, following the yellow road to the Emerald City. The Good Witch also gave Dorothy a kiss mark as a gift. Her kiss mark was a magical protection that would keep Dorothy unhurt. Dorothy and Toto started to go on a journey to the Emerald City in order to meet the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Meeting the Scarecrow. On her journey, Dorothy saw a scarecrow who didn't have a brain. He wanted to have a brain so that he could think and learn new things. Out of pity, Dorothy made up her mind to help the scarecrow. She asked him to join her to go to the Emerald City together. They became friends. They started the journey to see the Wizard of Oz together. Meeting the Tin Man, a woodcutter. Dorothy and the Scarecrow continued on their journey. When they passed by a forest, they saw Tin Man, a woodcutter, standing still. Tin Man was made of tin or steel, holding an axe. But he was rusty and didn't move. Dorothy noticed Tin Man was not moving. So, she fetched some oil near Tin Man's house. Then Tin Man was able to move freely. Tin Man said he didn't have a heart and he could not feel any emotions such as love. He wanted to have a heart so that he could love and feel emotions again. Tin Man continued saying that he wanted to ask the Wizard of Oz to give him a heart. This time, Dorothy decided to help Tin Man. Tin Man got to join Dorothy's journey. Now Dorothy, Scarecrow, and Tin Man marched to the Emerald City to meet the Wizard of Oz. During their journey, Tin Man told his friends his sad life story. When he was an ordinary man, he fell in love with a girl. Then, a wicked witch was jealous of their love. She cursed him to lose his arms, legs, and even his neck. He then asked a blacksmith to repair his body. He survived anyway. Unfortunately, the witch then took away his heart, which the blacksmith was unable to repair. As a result, Tin Man's heart was left empty. Despite this, he could not help loving the girl. He was determined to get his heart back. Hearing the story of Tin Man, Dorothy soon felt Tin Man was warm-hearted. He seemed to have a kind heart already. Meeting the Cowardly Lion. As they walked along, they met Cowardly Lion, who was scared of everything, even a rat. Cowardly Lion wanted to have courage so that he could be brave and face his fears. Dorothy decided to help Cowardly Lion, too. Now all of them set off toward the Emerald City together. Adventures on Journey. In the land of Oz, Dorothy made friends with Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion. Together, they went on a journey to see the Wizard of Oz. They hoped the Wizard of Oz could give what they wanted. Scarecrow needed to have a brain to be brilliant. Tin Man wanted a heart to feel emotions. Cowardly Lion wanted to gain courage to be brave. Dorothy wanted to go back home in Kansas. Scarecrow's brilliant ideas. Along the way, they came across a big, wide river that they needed to cross. But they didn't know how to swim, and there was no bridge to cross over. Scarecrow came up with a brilliant idea. He saw a big pile of woods nearby and suggested they build a raft. Dorothy, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion all helped to collect the woods and build the raft. When the raft was completed, they all climbed aboard and pushed it into the water. They slowly paddled across the river. Dorothy observed that despite not having a brain, Scarecrow displayed remarkable wisdom. Whenever the group got lost on the way to the Emerald City, it was Scarecrow who helped them find the right way. And whenever unexpected obstacles arose, Scarecrow was quick to devise a plan of action. Dorothy believed Scarecrow itself was one of the smartest in the world, so he didn't need a brain at all. Cowardly Lion's brave acts. The raft was in the middle of the river with a strong current. The raft was out of control and floating down forever. Somebody had to do something before they all drowned and died. But nobody was able to move because they were scared. All of a sudden, Cowardly Lion took a deep breath and jumped into the water. He started to pull the raft toward the opposite riverbank. In the beginning, Cowardly Lion was too scared to go into the water, to pull the raft and to cross the river. But he knew that he had to be brave for his friends. Cowardly Lion swam as hard as he could and pulled the raft to the other side. He was not a cowardly lion any longer. His friends were proud of him for being brave and facing his fear. All of them made it safely to the other side of the river and continued on their journey to see the Wizard of Oz. From then on, they worked together to overcome any obstacles they faced on their adventure. Tin Man's warm heart. One day, Dorothy and her friends, Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion found themselves in a strange field full of flowers. As they walked through the field, Dorothy, Cowardly Lion, and Toto suddenly felt very tired and fell asleep on the spot. Scarecrow and Tin Man tried to wake them up, but failed. They looked around and saw that other animals and creatures in the field were still sleeping dead. Neither Scarecrow nor Tin Man could not wake their friends. They didn't know what to do. Scarecrow and Tin Man were sure that all of them should get out of this deadly field as soon as possible. If not, their friends would sleep forever and die in the end. But they didn't know what to do. Then, Tin Man saw a small mouse chased by a big cat. The small mouse looked terrified and desperate. Out of pity for the escaping mouse, Tin Man swung his axe in front of the cat and drove off the cat. The small mouse thanked Tin Man for saving her life. She turned out to be a queen mouse in the field. In return for Scarecrow's warm-hearted kindness, she ordered her mice to carry Dorothy, Toto, and Lion out of the dangerous field. As a result, Tin Man's warm-hearted actions saved his friends' lives in the dangerous field. The Emerald City. Dorothy and her friends arrived at the outskirts of the Emerald City, where the Great Wizard of Oz resided in his majestic palace. Dorothy and her friends visited a small house to rest and asked its owner if they could stay overnight. After hearing about their adventures, the owner said all the people in the Emerald City had never seen the Great Wizard, as he had not let anyone see him before. He mentioned that all the people in Oz had only heard of the Great Wizard, but nobody had seen him ever. The throne chair had been always empty. Meeting the Great Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy and her friends reached the Emerald City, they went to the Great Wizard's room to meet him. But they were not able to see the Great Wizard, only to hear his powerful voice because he was invisible. The Great Wizard told them that he could help them only if they killed the Wicked Witch of the West and brought him the witch's broomstick. Dorothy and her friends were scared and disappointed, but they knew they had to try. They went out of the Emerald City to find the Wicked Witch of the West. Defeating the Wicked Witch of the West. Dorothy and her friends went to the castle where the Wicked Witch of the West lived. They couldn't defeat her because she was so strong and powerful. Fortunately, Dorothy happened to pour water on the witch. The witch melted and died because she was very weak against water. Dorothy and her friends took the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. They brought it to the Great Wizard of Oz. The real identity of the Great Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy gave him the broomstick, the Great Wizard of Oz revealed that he was not really a wizard. He was just an ordinary circus man from Kansas. He got stuck in Oz while traveling by balloon. People in the central part of Oz took him as a powerful wizard because he flew in a balloon. He was asked to become a ruler by the people of Oz. As he was not a real wizard, he was afraid of the bad witches because he had no magical power. He ordered them to build the Emerald City against the wicked witches of the East and the West. He had to pretend to be a strong wizard. He made people call him the Great Wizard of Oz. Some people called him the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. He was really happy when he heard that Dorothy had destroyed the Wicked Witch of the East. So, he asked Dorothy and her friends to kill the Wicked Witch of the West. Now that the two wicked witches of the East and the West were all gone, he was so happy and thanked Dorothy and her friends. Wishes fulfilled except Dorothy's. He finished his story and thought for a while. In turn, he had to keep his promise. Even though he was not a great wizard, he was a clever genius indeed. He gave Scarecrow a diploma in knowledge instead of a real brain. Scarecrow got content. He presented Tin Man with a heart-shaped clock instead of a real heart. Tin Man felt happy and touched. He awarded Cowardly Lion a Medal of Courage. The lion felt like a king of the jungle. All their wishes seemed to have been fulfilled, except for Dorothy's. The man promised to help Dorothy return to her home in Kansas with great sincerity and dedication. Going back home. A few days later, a big balloon was made for the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy to go back to Kansas. But Dorothy was late because of her dog Toto. Dorothy felt sad as she watched the balloon go up without her. She was disappointed. Then, another good witch, the Good Witch of the South came to see Dorothy. Her name was Glinda. When Dorothy asked her a favor, the Good Witch smiled and said, "You already have a pair of magic shoes that will take you anywhere." The Good Witch told Dorothy that she had to click her magic heels 3 times and say there's no place like home. Dorothy did as the witch said. She went back to her home in Kansas in no time. Now she was happy with her aunt and uncle. She smiled and said, "There's no place like home."
Blue version. The Adventure to the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. A long time ago, there was a girl called Dorothy. On a small farm in Kansas, Dorothy lived with her aunt and uncle and her dog, Toto. Her house was very far from the village, so she didn't have any friends. Dorothy's aunt and uncle were busy all the time, so she had to play only with her dog, Toto. Her only friend was Toto, and Dorothy always wished she could make more friends. One day, a big storm was approaching their house. It was a tornado. Dorothy's aunt and uncle rushed to a safe underground shelter to protect themselves. Only Dorothy and Toto were left in the house. Dorothy's house was swept away by a tornado. Before long, the strong wind lifted Dorothy's house. Outside the house, the tornado carried the house to a magical land called Oz. The house landed in the magical land of Oz. Unintentionally, the house squashed the Wicked Witch of the East, killing her beneath it. However, Dorothy had no clue what had occurred. She didn't even know where she was. A crowd of people gathered around Dorothy's house. They were the Munchkins, inhabitants of the eastern part of Oz. They were small and kind folks. They informed Dorothy that she had arrived in the land of Oz and that her house had eliminated the Wicked Witch of the East. They rejoiced at being liberated from the evil witch's control. They expressed their gratitude to Dorothy and celebrated her arrival. Despite everyone's gratitude, Dorothy only wished to return to her home in Kansas. Soon after, the Witch of the North appeared. She was a good witch, known as the Good Witch of the North. She also commended Dorothy for defeating the Wicked Witch. Even though the Good Witch didn't know the secret power of the shoes, she asked Dorothy to wear the deceased witch's magical shoes. After putting on the shoes, Dorothy requested the assistance of the Good Witch to return to her home in Kansas. The Good Witch advised Dorothy to meet the wonderful Wizard of Oz, who resided in the Emerald City, and follow the yellow road to reach there. Additionally, the Good Witch bestowed upon Dorothy a mark of her kiss as a gift. This kiss mark provided magical protection to keep Dorothy safe. Dorothy and Toto embarked on a journey to the Emerald City to meet the wonderful Wizard of Oz. During her journey, Dorothy came across a scarecrow who lacked a brain. The scarecrow wished for a brain so that he could think and learn new things. Feeling sorry for him, Dorothy decided to assist the scarecrow. She invited him to join her on the way to the Emerald City. They became friends and embarked together on their journey to meet the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy was happy to make her first friend with Scarecrow, apart from her dog, Toto. As they passed through a forest, they encountered Tin Man, a woodcutter, standing motionless. Tin Man, made of tin or steel and holding an axe, was rusty and unable to move. Dorothy noticed his immobility and fetched some oil from nearby. With the application of oil, Tin Man regained his freedom of movement. Tin Man revealed that he lacked a heart and could not experience emotions such as love. He longed to have a heart so that he could once again feel love and emotions. Tin Man expressed his desire to seek the Wizard of Oz's assistance in obtaining a heart. This time, Dorothy decided to help Tin Man, and he joined her journey. Now, Dorothy, Scarecrow, and Tin Man continued their march towards the Emerald City to meet the Wizard of Oz. On their journey to the Emerald City where the wonderful Wizard of Oz lived, Tin Man began to tell his sad love story. Once, Tin Man was an ordinary man who fell in love with a girl in his neighborhood. However, a wicked witch became envious of their love and cursed Tin Man, causing him to lose his arms, legs, and even his neck. Despite his misfortune, Tin Man sought help from a blacksmith, who managed to repair his body, allowing him to survive. Unfortunately, the witch also took away his heart, which proved beyond the blacksmith's ability to repair, leaving Tin Man's heart empty. Despite these hardships, Tin Man could not help but continue loving the girl. He remained determined to retrieve his heart. Upon hearing Tin Man's story, Dorothy sensed that he was genuinely warm-hearted and seemed to possess a kind heart already. As they continued their journey, they encountered a lion who was terribly afraid of everything, even a small rat. This lion, known as Cowardly Lion, wished to have courage so that he could be brave and confront his fears. Dorothy decided to lend a helping hand to Cowardly Lion as well. Now, there were Dorothy, Toto, Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion together. All of them embarked on the journey towards the Emerald City together. In the magical land of Oz, Dorothy formed friendships with Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion. They set off on a journey to seek the assistance of the Wizard of Oz. Each of them had a specific desire they hoped the wizard could fulfill. Scarecrow wanted a brain to become intelligent. Tin Man desired a heart to experience emotions. Cowardly Lion longed to gain courage and be brave. Dorothy's ultimate goal was to find a way back home to Kansas. During their travels, they came across a wide river that needed to be crossed. However, none of them knew how to swim, and there was no bridge in sight. Scarecrow came up with a brilliant plan. He noticed a heap of wood nearby and proposed building a raft. Dorothy, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion all pitched in, collecting the wood and constructing the raft. Once the raft was finished, they climbed aboard and gently pushed it into the water. Together, they paddled across the river. Dorothy noticed that despite lacking a brain, Scarecrow displayed remarkable wisdom. Whenever the group faced confusion and lost their way, Scarecrow guided them on the correct path. In the face of unexpected challenges, Scarecrow promptly devised clever strategies. Dorothy believed that Scarecrow was already one of the smartest beings in the world and didn't actually require a brain at all. The raft found itself in the middle of a river with a strong current. It was out of control and drifting endlessly. It was a critical situation, and someone had to take action before they all drowned. However, everyone was too scared to move. Suddenly, Cowardly Lion took a deep breath and leaped into the water. He began pulling the raft towards the opposite riverbank. At first, Cowardly Lion was terrified to enter the water, pull the raft, and cross the river. But he understood that he needed to be brave for the sake of his friends. With all his strength, Cowardly Lion swam and tugged the raft to the other side. Cowardly Lion received praise from his friends for his bravery in facing his fear. They all safely reached the other side of the river and continued their journey to meet the Wizard of Oz. From that moment onward, they worked together to overcome any obstacles they encountered during their adventure. One day, Dorothy and her friends, Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion, found themselves in a peculiar field filled with flowers. While walking through the field, Dorothy, Cowardly Lion, and Toto suddenly grew incredibly tired and fell into a deep sleep right where they stood. Scarecrow and Tin Man attempted to wake them up, but their efforts proved fruitless. They noticed that all the other animals and creatures in the field were also in a deep slumber. Scarecrow and Tin Man were unable to rouse their friends and felt uncertain about what to do. They realized that it was crucial for all of them to escape from this dangerous field promptly. Otherwise, their friends would remain trapped in eternal sleep and eventually perish. However, they were at a loss as to how to proceed. It was then that Tin Man spotted a small mouse being chased by a large cat. The terrified mouse seemed desperate for help. Out of sympathy for the fleeing mouse, Tin Man swung his axe in front of the cat, scaring it away. The grateful mouse thanked Tin Man for saving her life and revealed herself to be the Queen Mouse of the field. In gratitude for Scarecrow's compassionate act, she commanded her mice to carry Dorothy, Toto, and Cowardly Lion out of the treacherous field. As a result, Tin Man's kind-hearted action ultimately saved the lives of his friends in the perilous field. Dorothy and her friends finally arrived at the outskirts of the Emerald City, the grand palace where the wonderful Wizard of Oz lived. Seeking a place to rest, they approached a small house and asked its owner if they could stay overnight. As they shared their remarkable adventures, the owner informed them that no one in the Emerald City had ever seen the wonderful Wizard of Oz. He had chosen to remain unseen, and his throne had always been vacant. The next day, Dorothy and her friends made their way to the Emerald City and straight to the room of the wonderful wizard, hoping to finally meet him. However, they could only hear his powerful voice, as the wonderful wizard remained invisible. The wonderful Wizard of Oz conveyed that he could only assist them if they accomplished the task of defeating the Wicked Witch of the West and bringing him her broomstick. Although frightened and disappointed by this revelation, Dorothy and her friends understood they had to undertake this challenging mission. Dorothy and her friends set off toward the castle where the Wicked Witch of the West resided. Dorothy and her friends soon discovered that the witch possessed immense strength and power, making it impossible for them to defeat her. Fortunately, an unexpected turn of events occurred when Dorothy accidentally poured water on the witch. Due to the witch's vulnerability to water, she melted and perished. With the Wicked Witch defeated, Dorothy and her friends retrieved the witch's broomstick and brought it back to the wonderful Wizard of Oz as requested. When Dorothy presented him with the broomstick, the wonderful Wizard of Oz admitted that he was not actually a wizard. In reality, he was just an ordinary circus man from Kansas who had become stranded in Oz after his balloon journey. The people in the central region of Oz mistook him for a powerful wizard because of his arrival in a balloon. They asked him to be their ruler. Since he lacked any magical abilities, he feared the wicked witches. In order to protect against them, he commanded the construction of the Emerald City. To maintain the illusion of being a formidable wizard, he insisted on being called the Great Wizard of Oz, and some even referred to him as the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Upon learning that Dorothy had vanquished the Wicked Witch of the East, he felt immense joy. Hence, he requested Dorothy to defeat the Wicked Witch of the West as well. With both the Wicked Witches of the East and the West eliminated, he expressed his gratitude to Dorothy and her friends, feeling a great sense of happiness. After finishing his story, the man took some time to think. He had made a promise, and even though he wasn't a great wizard, he possessed cleverness and wisdom. He presented Scarecrow with a diploma symbolizing knowledge, fulfilling his wish for a brain. Scarecrow felt content and satisfied. For Tin Man, he offered a heart-shaped clock instead of a real heart. This gesture touched Tin Man deeply, making him happy. Cowardly Lion received a medal acknowledging his courage. The lion felt proud and as majestic as the king of the jungle. It seemed like all their desires had been fulfilled, except for Dorothy's. The man had made a genuine and devoted promise to help Dorothy return to her home in Kansas. A few days later, a large balloon was prepared for the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy to travel back to Kansas. Unfortunately, Dorothy was delayed due to her dog Toto. Dorothy felt a deep sadness as she watched the balloon ascend without her. Her disappointment was overwhelming. Then, another good witch named Glinda, the Good Witch of the South, came to see Dorothy. The Good Witch already knew how to work the magic shoes that belonged to Dorothy and were left by the Wicked Witch of the East. The Good Witch instructed Dorothy to tap her magic heels together 3 times while saying, "There's no place like home." Following the witch's guidance, Dorothy was swiftly transported back to her home in Kansas. Now, she was filled with happiness, reunited with her aunt and uncle. She smiled and joyfully proclaimed, "There's no place like home."